Alright, so in order to create objects in PHP, we are going to need something called class. A class acts like a factory of objects. So if I would like to create a red car, then I'm going to need a car factory. If I'm going to need an object of cup, then I'm going to need a cup factory. And in PHP we call these as classes. So I'm going to say class car. Now I just defined the class here, and notice that the first letter of the name of the class should be always capital. It is the best practice. So in order to create an object out of this class, I just say $car equal new car. So this way I just created an object of type car. Now I'm going to run this in PHP, but as you will see, nothing happens yet. But the object is created, however, it doesn't have any functionalities. Alright, now for our next step, let's say that I want this car's color to be red. So the way I do that is that I need to create a method called, for example, public function. This is the way we declare a method. I will talk later on about what public means. So basically this is a function, and I'm going to call it make color. So this function is going to make the color of the car whatever color I pass in here. And remember, inside classes we refer to functions as methods. Alright, so I'm going to say that once I change the color, print color is $color. Alright, so when I call this method, then it's going to print that the color of the car is whatever color I put in here. So basically, right now I have an object of a car, and I want to change its color to, let's say, red. So I say $color make color red. Okay, so now I can, if I run this function, it's going to say color is red. So I just changed the color of this car to red. I can add other functionalities here and say that public function, for example, set seats, $number of seats. So how many seats should be in the car? Print number of seats are $number of seats. So if I want to apply this method, then I'm just going to say set seats, for example, to 4. So I want 4 seats in this car. Now if I run this again, then I'm going to say color is red, number of seats are 4. Now we have a problem here. If I say, for example, let's say that I would like to know the color of this car, for example, then I don't have any method to say that, for example, car get color, right? Even if I create that method here, like let's say public function get color. So now I want to know the color of the car. So I want something to say echo $color, right? So I set the color here in the make color method. However, now I want to get the color of that car. So how would I do that? Okay, so we are going to need something called properties. here I can say public $color, for example, and now this is our color property. The color property is basically the property of the car object. So now when I say make color, for example, I can say that $this, so I'm going to assign color the value that we passed here. So I'm going to say $this color equal $color. So basically $this here, this refers to the class that we are inside. So basically this is referring to the object of car itself. So I'm saying that this color, so the color that we set here, we are referring to the variable with an arrow, and then we set its value just like any other variables in PHP. However, let's say that if I can, inside the method, I can still create other colors, like for example default color or whatever equal to green, let's say. So I can create variables inside the methods. However, if I want to create a variable, let's say, that is accessible in each of these methods and they can share their values between each other, then I'm going to need something called property. So this is the difference between a property and a variable. Now I'm going to remove this. So basically, since I set the color property to the color of the car, now that I can say that when I say get color, then equal $this color. However, if I didn't set the color, then the color is value by default is null. Now let's try to echo the color. I'm going to remove these two print methods so you can see clearly what's happening. So now it echoed the color of the car. So now we learned how to write methods, how to declare classes, and how to instantiate objects, and as well how to access the methods and set their values. So in PHP, it's very important to know that we have something called getters and setters. So basically, if I call this set color instead of make color, it would make sense, it would make more sense. So basically a setter is, let's say we have this public variable called color. First, I'm going to set the color the same way I did here, and then there is a getter for it, which is called get color. So this get color method is responsible to return the color value that was set before. So these are the setters and getters. Basically, these are the most important basics of object orientation. Now, before I continue, I need to point out something very important where people make mistakes. So if, let's say, I want to create a class, or I have a project to create a cup of water. This is something very simple, cup of water. So many people do this mistake and they call class cup of water. So I just created a class cup of water, and then I say $cup of water equal new cup of water. Of course, PHP won't fail, the code won't fail, it won't throw out any errors here, as you can see. However, even though it doesn't make sense in object orientation to create something like this, so you shouldn't always depend on errors in order to know whether your code is correct or not. Many times you should always depend on the logic behind your object. So a cup of water are two objects, two different objects. One object is a cup and the other one is water. A cup can exist without water, and the water can exist without the cup, which means that they are not one object. And later on you are going to face problems in a class cup of water, because this cup of water class, if you create it and in the future it was requested from you to create a cup of coffee, for example, and then in that case, since the cup of water is already made for only one purpose, to create cups of water, in that case you won't be able to reuse the functionalities inside it, which I'm going to show you that later on, but for now you have to understand that in that case you need to create class cup of coffee. And then if you want to create class cup of cola, for example, then you're going to declare each one of them like this, which doesn't make sense because the cup is already common between all three of them, and it's supposed to be a separate object which the cola, coffee and water class uses. So remember this, always look at the sentence itself when you're dealing with object orientation. Cup of water. So basically there is a class cup, there is a class water, and they are independent of each other.